Hello and welcome to Mommy Dentist and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Yum. Welcome back, everybody. And it is such a great day because it's April 1st. Today is the first day that we're going to start the second quarter of the year. I mean, time is just flying by. So I am excited to be here. And thank you, listeners, for always leaving us 5-star reviews. And you can leave them on any channel that you listen to our podcast. Please do so. And also remember that our social summit is coming up. And I'm bringing this up. Okay. Our social summit is this fall. It will be September 24 to 26 in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. at the Fairmont Hotel. And I am going to tell you why I'm bringing this up because, well, one, we only have 10 seats left. So if you want to come, go like run, don't walk and get your seat because we're going to sell out. But our guest for today, Conner Ludlow, who is the CEO of Annie. Annie is a new AI partner of MDibs. Well, guess what? Conner and I go way back, you guys. And we're talking way back to our second social summit 7 years ago at the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans. Welcome back, Conner, and I'm so happy to reconnect with you.
Yeah, likewise, excited to be here. And that was one of my favorite dental events that I look back to. So excited to be
Yes.
back here.
Yes. Well, it's time for you to come back to another
Yeah,
one. It's
exactly. We're looking forward to it.
it's been a while. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
You were telling me what you've been doing since then, and I thought that maybe you would want to tell our audience what you have been up to since I've seen you in person in New Orleans 7 years ago. If you don't mind letting our audience know what you do and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, no, I'm excited to be on here and appreciate you giving me the time. I know that a lot of the answers to that question are kind of nerdy, so I'm always happy to nerd out a little bit and have people be down to listen to that. But to answer your question, I got really into AI. I'm a software engineer. That's what I went to school for, and so I luckily ended up kind of being in a spot where I had a lot of free time to write code and dig into some of the new technologies that have been coming out lately around the AI side of things. And that all lined up perfectly with a lot of the releases of this technology. And I know that AI is very buzzwordy,
Mhm,
and it seems to be what everybody's talking about. And I think
mhm,
that for a lot of people, it's sometimes you even get a little burnt out of maybe how much we're talking about it. But I think what I'm excited about with the whole subject is going beyond just the buzzword, but digging into what's actually happening with it and how it actually works, and that's where I had a lot of fun in those years since we last talked of experimenting with that and understanding that side really well.
Well, I'm really excited for everyone to talk about Annie A. I've heard really good things, and I have to say, I love using AI, and it's not really new. It's been around for a while, but I feel that the technology around AI is speeding up, and there are more things offered, more features, and it just gets better and better. I really want to know because again, I'm a user of AI. What is real versus hype, right? Like, because it's in your face. People are constantly talking about it. We actually had our March clinical event in Chicago the whole meeting for 2 days was based on artificial intelligence. What can you tell us as you are the engineer and science behind AI and you write code? Can you please tell us what is real versus what is not?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I kind of mentioned maybe feelings of burnout around AI. And I think sometimes that correlates with the hype. I feel like, at least from my point of view, sometimes I'll hop on LinkedIn or Facebook or X or whatever it might be. And you get a lot of hype. It's AI is the future. If you're not using this, you'll lose your job. I would even say a little bit of FOMO is kind
Mhm,
of the vibe around it sometimes. And, I often don't see it really draw the lines to what do I actually go do? What's
mhm,
practical right now? And I think to answer that question of what's hype and what's real, the analogy that I like to use is I think that AI is an interesting topic because
mhm,
when it was released, we have all seen movies, about robots and about AI or read books. that have kind of, maybe shown a vision into the future of what AI might look like. And so normally when a technology comes out, you don't necessarily have that. It's a little bit more new. Let's use the internet as an example. It's not like there was, this massive vision of what the internet was going to become in the way that we've seen iRobot or The Terminator or Matrix, these movies. And so I think what it does is it kind of in our minds, it's really easy to look at that hype side and think like, oh, the
Hmm.
Matrix is here, the Terminator is here. And I kind of feel like we skipped a step. I feel like we skipped a step of just, hey, this is a tool. And that's how I would answer your question is I think that a lot of the answer to that just comes down to maybe taking it down a notch and saying the goal of all of this is to help us be more efficient, to be more effective in our jobs and to be a tool just like the internet was, just like a calculator was, just like, the various pieces of equipment that we use in the dental practice are. And I think that when you look at it more from that point of view, it starts to become about how does it actually save me time or what saves me time versus just what is really cool or what is really hypey, or
Yeah.
some of those futuristic views.
I agree. I think that we need to really hone in on what is the purpose and the usage of it and how's it going to really change, affect, or make your life better. How does artificial intelligence actually work? And meaning, for people who haven't used it, how would it work in a dental setting? And what should dentists be aware of before bringing it into their dental office?
Yeah, that's a great question because again, I think some of the hype and some of the reasons why people use AI comes from that FOMO side. So it's sort of, hey, I know it's a thing, I should be using it. I think that when people dig into what it actually is and what the technology is, it helps kind of see it more as that tool and to understand where it's going to be really good, where you're still probably going to want that human aspect, right? And the way that I would answer that is I would say that think of AI as it's an algorithm at the end of the day.
Mm,
So, it's called artificial intelligence. That makes you think of a brain.
hmm.
It's not actually a brain. It can't actually, make decisions in the way that our humans brains do. But instead, what it's doing is it's an algorithm that is predicting, or trying to, for lack of a better word, guess what the
Hmm.
right answer should be based on a lot of data. So when you're using something that's, on the clinical side, let's say that you're having AI analyze an X-ray,
Hmm.
and it's pointing out potential cavities. It's pointing out potential cavities,
Right.
not necessarily saying, "Hey, I'm replacing you as a dentist." What it's doing is it has large amount of data on what cavities look like, and so when it sees an X-ray, if the X-ray looks similar to all that data that it has, it's saying, hey, this looks similar to a lot of other images that I've seen where there's a cavity.
Sure.
And so I think that that's really important to understand how that works. And if you haven't dove into what an LLM is or how a lot of these AI systems work, I think it's a great first step, before you start using it. And I think it helps a lot with the hype because I would say the hype sometimes is correlated with that idea of, hey, I'm using this thing to analyze X-rays and it's replacing me. That's not what it's actually saying. It's saying this can be a really helpful tool because there is some value in those large amounts of data and that idea that it could say, hey, you might want to take a closer look at this because it correlates with a lot of the other data that I've seen or areas that I've, seen similar images where there actually was a cavity. And so it's still going to require you as a dentist to make that
Sure.
final call, but it can be huge and supplemental. And that's where I think it becomes more of a tool than just
Yes.
like, oh, I need to be using it because it's AI.
Yes. I agree. You're saying, hey, it is another tool in your tool belt or armamentarium. I can't even say the word, but to help you in your practice and not to be replacing human capital. Now, in your opinion, AI, as good as it is with all the data that's being entered right now nowadays and everything that it's coming out with, does it make mistakes? I mean, is it making a lot of mistakes?
Yeah, so mistakes are going to happen, and you may have heard the term hallucination when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually a common thing that adds to the burnout around it, is that there's all this hype. It's getting pitched as the silver bullet and the final boss of technology. And then, we use it and we see some of those errors and we think, this is, this was all a lie or this was fake. Going back to what I said about the algorithm, right? If I were to tell you that I had a fruit and it was orange and it was circle, you might say, oh, it's an orange, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what
Mm-hmm.
if it was a clementine?
Mm-hmm.
We can see how, if we're talking about an algorithm, that's sort of how these AI systems work, is they've seen a lot of the data. They hear fruit, round, orange, and, the most likely answer might be that it's an orange, but
Mm-hmm.
it is still a possible answer that it's a clementine. You could even say maybe like mango could fall in that category, right?
Persimmon.
There you go. Exactly. So when AI makes mistakes, that's why I think understanding it and just like a lot of other things that we do and a lot of other tools that we use, it's important to know how to kind of wield that tool. And when you look at it that way, going back to the clinical example of using it to analyze X-rays, that doesn't mean that you just have to say, oh, yep, this is a cavity.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, hey, this is kind of how it works, and maybe it's flagging it, but
Mm-hmm.
me as a human who's also seen a lot of this data can kind of confidently be the final call there. And so, mistake, I think recognizing where it has likelihood of doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and what those mistakes actually are. It's not
Right.
that the artificial intelligence sucks. It's just the nature of something like an algorithm. And when you're, not having a true brain, if it might, the data might actually point to one answer, but it's up to us to kind of be the final users of the tool and make sure that the output that gets to a patient is correct.
Absolutely. Now, how does AI fit into hygiene and the clinical workflow? I mean, we talked about AI and reading, diagnosing radiographs. How does AI then fit into a clinical setting other than the radiographs?
Yeah, so you might have heard of, like, for example, your clinical notes, tools that will help record your conversations and enter those notes for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's the administrative side of being able to answer phone calls or do things like your appointment confirmations, your insurance verifications, which take off some of those things that sometimes you get distracted with or have to multitask. And then that allows you to focus more specifically on what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way I love to describe it is we're not saying that it's trying to replace you or your team members, but I think it's a really cool tool where those you to run more efficiently or some of those monotonous tasks that you have to do, like putting in your
Correct.
notes,
Right.
and take that off your plate so that you have more time to, keep your brain focused on the bigger items that are in front of you.
Absolutely. Make sure you verify because if there's a mistake, you really don't want errors, especially in documentation.
Yep.
Where does AI not really then make sense to put into a dental practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of given some good examples of, I think, the healthy side of using AI. And then, the not healthy side, I would say, is when you're almost, human nature, we love things that kind of are silver bullets, right? The magic pills. But I think that that's where I would kind of draw the line is I think when you look at it as a tool, there's a lot of really, really healthy use cases. If you're using it to record your conversations and to create those notes for you so that you don't have to type every single line of that note.
Right,
That's
right.
awesome. And if you go and review them and make sure that that final note has your seal of approval, that's great. To your point, if you're not checking those and you're just taking it at face
Mhm.
value and never looking at those again, odds are that it might have misinterpreted something or missed
Mhm.
something, not put enough emphasis on something else that you might have wanted to record. Or maybe there was
Absolutely.
something that you didn't fully talk about that you still wanted to make sure was in that note, right? And that's where I
Absolutely.
think that maybe people go wrong with it is they
Yes.
forget that it's a tool and they maybe focus a little bit too much on the silver bullet nature.
Absolutely. Now, I know that there are some mommy dentists who talk about Annie and already are using Annie. And vetting Annie and training Annie. I was wondering if you could tell the audience what does Annie actually do?
Yeah, so think of Annie as a digital employee for your office. A sidekick is a word that I like to use, and I think that goes along with a lot of what we've talked about here. Some people will come in and think that Annie's meant to be a replacement for a team member. We
Mm-hmm.
really like that sidekick word. Annie can handle your website chats. We have an online scheduler. We can manage your overdue patients and reach out for things like recare to get them back on the schedule and on the books. We can handle missed phone calls. So if you miss a call, it will go to Annie. She's trained on your practice with things like how to schedule, how to answer insurance questions, and can convert those calls, both inbound and outbound, into appointments that actually show up on the schedule. And the goal of that, let's use recare as an example. Often recare in dentistry is a reactive thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
we've got some openings on our schedule. Let's call some overdue patients and see if we can get them filled. Or, our
Mm-hmm.
list is up to 500 patients, 1,000 patients. We should probably hunker down and give them all a
Mm-hmm.
call. But our goal with Annie is to actually have that always be happening in the background so
Mm-hmm.
that, again, if you're checking out a patient, you can give that patient your full attention.
Absolutely.
If you have a crazy day, you don't have to get to the end of the day and think, oh, shoot, I didn't call any of our
Right.
recare list, right?
Right.
You just
Right.
know that it's happening. And that peace of mind is why we like the sidekick word, where Annie's hopefully there as a teammate to take some of those things that you traditionally have to multitask and give you the peace of mind that they're all happening and that you have a good baseline at your practice.
Well, I want to ask you because, it seems like there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces, right? There's companies that do the radiographs, and there's companies that do the scribing, then there are companies that do the insurance, and then there are companies that do the phones. I mean, like, it's four or five different companies. And I think it starts to get very confusing as to like what pairs with what, especially with your practice management software that you're using. For example, Dentrix or EagleSoft. Those are like the two big players, right? And then you're like curious as to like how does Annie work with Dentrix, work with this, works with that, works like it gets confusing. So what are like the what like how do you get organized?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I think that what I talked about of looking at it all as a tool is kind of step number one. You shouldn't sign up for AI because you just want to use AI. You should kind of understand where your practice needs help. And then all those various things that you talked about are different angles that you can go to plug some of those holes or fill some of those gaps. So if it's missed calls that, you feel like are killing your practice, then something like Annie can be a great fit. If it's that you would like to save some of the time on the charting and your clinical notes, then something like a scribe might be a
Hmm.
great fit. And what I talked about at the beginning of the data and the way that these AI systems are trained, that's why you see some of these different specialties is because we're all looking at those individual areas and working to get things really fine-tuned around those specific tasks so that the AI does a better and better job, at those specific tasks. So that's why there's a little bit of a split. Oftentimes comes down to the focus and the training of those AI systems and where they're specialized in, I guess
Hmm.
you could say. And so I think a lot of it comes back to not just signing up for all of them because you want to use AI, but understanding how your practice works, looking at the different systems, and
Yeah,
where are some areas that we do need help,
right.
and that we could utilize AI to automate certain things.
I love that. It's a really good way. You have to look at the big picture, right? Like look at the big picture, spot where are the inefficiencies of your practice. Every practice is going to be different. And if you're struggling to keep, your front desk full and you can't find a front desk member or one person's out on maternity and there's going to be a rotation, then you have to kind of diagnose your practice to see where are the bottlenecks, where are the challenges, and then go from there and then say, okay, I need this tool to help me with this for the next year or moving forward. Or even look at your case acceptance rates. I mean, if you look at your case acceptance rate, or you look at your phone logs, or you look at like what it is that you're struggling with, spot that, and then attack it from that approach.
Right.
Um, I think that that's all really great advice, and I think that's all really great input on how to elevate your practice and then how to solve those problems. And that's like the biggest takeaway from this session is shooting and problem solving with AI and letting AI help you do that.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I think you're right on the money there. Before I was working on Annie, I would go and meet with companies, and this was right when ChatGPT had come out, and right when I think there was even more craziness around AI and what is this technology. And a lot of the premise of those meetings was exactly what you said. I think that they would come in, and the reason I was there was because it was a general, I don't want to say panic, that might be a little bit too strong, but like a little bit of panic around like, what is this thing and how do we get up to speed? And
Yeah.
how do we not fall behind? And so when you're looking at it from that angle, you're not actually looking at your business. It's that FOMO feeling, right? And that's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of what I did was just, hey, let's take a step back here. Here's what the technology is. Here's how you should look at it. It's just like any other tool that you might look to sign up for,
Right.
or any employee that you might be looking to hire. It kind of goes back to what's the need, what's the purpose, and what are the things that we hope to accomplish here. Is that worth the money? And is it actually going to help us run a better practice? You
Mm-hmm.
analyze the tools and pick something that's going to be a fit for you. And I think that that concept might have been lost a little bit with the craziness, but I think it's a very healthy viewpoint.
I love that. Before I let you go, I have to ask, what is your number one piece of advice on what you do to find balance between your professional and personal life?
I think a lot of it just comes down to that's a great question. I'm trying to think of how to phrase what came to mind first when you asked that. I think for me, there's a lot of overlap. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this, if you're a practice owner, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like in a way your business and your professional life can become your baby.
Oh, yes.
So it's really tempting to like, have it be everything, right? And
Yes.
and I
Yes.
think that as we've gotten deeper and deeper into Annie and with past experiences where I've found the balance is, really kind of following my gut. I think for me, kind of the balance
Mm-hmm.
is like a very personal thing of I know
Mm-hmm.
when, I'm doing something because I feel like I need to work
Yes.
and not because I want to work.
Right.
And I've noticed that the more and more that I can keep it closer to what do I want to do and what is my body telling me and what is my mind, telling me right now, it tends to be a much better balance. And sometimes it is transparently very work heavy.
Yeah.
But when it comes from a place of that's what I want to be doing,
Sure.
and it's not, contributing to burnout, it tends to
Yeah.
be healthy. And it's helped me enjoy those moments where I've realized, hey, I want to go out and enjoy some time with friends or go play a round of golf or spend time with family. And when it's what I want to do, it feels, much more natural than what I should be doing, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. 100%. Well, thank you so much for being on with us, Connor. And I'm really excited that you'll be back to an MDivs event soon. Again, listeners, if you're not an official member, get to be an official member. Go to our website at mommydibs.com, mommydibs.com. Official membership does so much for you. I have to say, it's been almost 8 years, going on 9 about the membership. And we have all these unlimited resources, help you get your CE, get discounts with all of our favorite partners, dental and lifestyle. We have over 100 documents in our portal that can help you run your practice. And for our associates, you guys love all of our discounts for our lifestyle partners. Right now, we just landed a discount partnership with Sugarfina just in time for Easter, you guys. And if you like candy and you like to gift your staff, I feel like it's always hygienist week. It's a great way to go and take a look. Olive and Coco, Harry and David, those are some of our partners as well. Now, again, if you are looking for all of our other episodes and you can't find them because there's a list that's too long and sometimes the software doesn't keep them, go to our website again and you'll find a whole library. And we will see you at our social summit. If you're coming to CEO Roundtable, I will see you there. Otherwise, have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Connor.